Well, welcome to this episode of the Poetry of Healing. And as you can see, I have our phenomenal guest, Dr. Fields, here with us. And this is a continuation of the celebration of National Nurses Month. And Dr. Fields is a big hitter in the profession. He is the president of the National Black Nurses Association. So I want to welcome you, Dr. Fields, to this episode.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Van. I'm so excited that we have figured out how to get me here, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
I'm excited. And our viewers know that before we get started with our dynamic and inspiring discussion this morning, we do a centering. And this morning, I have a centering to kind of focus us to get into the moment, to embrace this time as a special time for us. And this morning, I'm going to do a centering that I did a few months ago, and it's about checking in with our senses. And so here we go. And of course, it's an invitation. If you just want to lower your gaze and close your eyes, and I'm going to guide you through this 1 minute centering exercise. And so let's begin. We always take a cleansing breath. Breathe in deeply through your nose and then out. And as you breathe out, just try to say relax. Relax every muscle in your beautiful body. And one more time, let's take another deep breath in through the nose. Deep, deep breath, the deepest breath you've taken today. And then out through your mouth like you're blowing out a candle. And so with your gaze lowered or your eyes closed, the first sense we're going to focus on is sight. And so as you gently open your eyes, I'd like you to look around and notice 5 things that you can see. So it may be a color of an object near you. You may have a beautiful pattern on your wall. I have a nice cold glass of water in front of me. I have my Post-it notes to the right of me. I have a beautiful, beautiful vase of pink roses to the left of me. So I'd like you to just identify, look around and identify 5 things you can see. Just embrace that. Now we're going to go to hearing. And it may help for you to close your eyes or lower your gaze again, or you can leave them open. I'd like you to listen to or listen for 4 things that you can hear. Okay? It might be the hum of your computer. I have an air freshener that I can hear humming. I can hear the little buzz of the lights that are around me. So what can you hear? Either inside the space you're in or outside the space you're in. Next, we're going to focus on touch. So I'd like you to identify 3 things that you can touch and touch them. 3 things. So you may feel your hands resting on your lap or the surface where you are. I'm feeling the texture of my desk. You can feel the clothing against your skin. You might have something on your desk or the area where you are. Like you could just pick up and feel. And is it cool? Is it warm? Is it smooth? Just think about that. The fourth sense we're going to do is take notice of two things you can smell. Okay? Two things you can smell. You might have just cooked breakfast. I love the smell of bacon. I didn't cook bacon this morning, but I'm gonna think about smelling it. I can smell the flowers that are nearby me. So what can you notice? Two things you can smell. You may have your favorite fragrance on. Lastly, I'd like you to become aware of one thing you can taste. So you may not have something around you right now, but think of the last thing you ate or drank. I'm thinking of, I just drank some water before signing on. I have it right here. Okay. All right. And as we bring this to a close, I just ask that you take a nice deep breath in again, and then blow out anything that's not serving you well. So it might be, you may be tense in your shoulders. So just roll them back and exhale. Okay. Roll them forward. Okay. So thank you for participating. And I know that you are here to hear from Dr. Fields. And Dr. Fields, I hope that has been calming for you, even though I know you're not nervous, but it just brings us into the space. So would you please tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, if you want to add something personal, that you are you've hit so many home runs in the profession of nursing, and also just in healthcare in general. And I found, this is so wonderful when I have guests, that we have a connection. So you were born in Brooklyn. I immigrated to Brooklyn with my family when we came here and spent about 10 years there. So it's a favorite place of mine. And then we both did a postdoc at UCSF. So we are connected. And of course, we're both members of the Black Nurses Association. I have my pin on. Where is it? Right here. My 50-year pin right here.
Yes.
On there. So, Dr. Fields, please.
Absolutely. Well, I didn't realize we had all those connections. I think that's great. But as you did say, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, born to a Puerto Rican father and an African-American mother. So grew up in a very multicultural sort of way in, what is, one of the largest, cities in the world, and grew up around my aunt, who was a nurse, who was really my inspiration into why I also became a nurse. She taught me how to help take care of my grandmother when I was very young. So, I often get that question about not only where I came from, but, how did I sort of find my way into this profession? And it was really about that early exposure in my family. My aunt passed away a couple of years ago. Her name was Lorraine. I miss her dearly, but I carry her with me because she was truly my inspiration and the reason why I'm a nurse today.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the loss of your aunt, but I know that I can just feel her spirit within you. And we have another connection. I'm Hispanic too. I'm from Central America. So
yes. There's a lot more of us than people realize who have a bicultural orientation.
Yes. So you are the president of the National Black Nurses Association. You are in your the first year of a 2-year term. Yet you also have a full-time job. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I do have the high honor and the privilege of being the 14th president of the National Black Nurses Association. I took office at the end of our last conference last August in Atlanta. But you're absolutely correct. I added being NBNA president to what is my day job, in which I am the inaugural Associate Dean for Equity and Inclusion in the Ross and Carol Neese College of Nursing at Penn State University, a position that I assumed in October of 2020 at the very height of the pandemic. And it was just a fabulous opportunity to come help this institution at the time when we were all dealing with the worldwide COVID pandemic, as well as the racial reckoning post everything that was going on post the George Floyd incident. And it's been a great opportunity here to not only instill and help this institution with their DEI mission and vision, but really to foster the ability to follow students and support students, particularly historically underrepresented students, through their journey of becoming nurses, because we have to do everything that we can to diversify the nursing profession.
Absolutely. When you talk about that, and congratulations, I didn't realize that you were the inaugural associate dean. So congratulations. And there's a lot of work associated with being the inaugural and the first. So I congratulate you. Dr. Fields, I'm just in awe because you're not only supporting the diversity at Penn State, but nationally, and I believe globally. You are here, there, everywhere. Your voice resounds throughout, definitely the United States. I troll you on LinkedIn, so I know that you're just everywhere, and we are so grateful for your passion and compassion regarding diversity in the nursing workforce. So let's take a deep dive. But one more thing. So you don't have all of your initials after your name. You reduce them. So viewers, if you are just tuning in, we're having a discussion in celebration of National Nurses Month with the National Black Nurses Association president, Dr. Sheldon Fields. And so I wanted to talk about his accomplishments. You are a fellow. We're both fellows in the American Academy of Nursing. So that's another thing we share. But you are a fellow in 3 other
well, at least 2 others. I'm a fellow of the National Academies of Practice, and I'm also a fellow of the American Association of Nurse Practitioners, because I've been a family nurse practitioner for 26 years or so, almost as long as I've actually been an RN, because I went back to school quite early. And I've been given the opportunity to have a career that expands, nursing education, as well as clinical practice, research, health policy, as a former Robert Wood Johnson Health Policy Fellow. I'm a nurse entrepreneur. I own my own business. I consider myself to be an advocate, particularly in health inequities. And of course, that is the beauty of our nursing profession. You can do multiple things, and several of these things can be true all at the same time. And certain things, emerge. Currently, I'm really focused on my career in academic administration, which is hence my associate dean role.
Okay, all right. So we have this foundation of your practice, your advocacy, your education. Now I'd like to focus on the National Black Nurses Association.
Yeah.
And so I read that there are about 280,000 Black nurses working in the United States. It's around that. But tell us of those 280,000, how many are members of the Black
So,
Nurses
so
Association?
it's actually a lot closer. It might be well over 300,000. Those numbers are dynamic and they continue to change.
Mhm.
However, Black nurses are only about 7, 8% of all nurses. So we do not mirror the percentage that we are in society. And
Mhm.
that's part of the problem. You know, my mantra is every nurse is an NBNA nurse. They just don't know it yet. And our membership is closing in on a little over 5,000 in the over 100 chapters. I believe at conference this year, we're going to bring in a few more new chapters. I think it'll get us to 115, but
Mhm.
we're in 34 states, including the District of Columbia. So we have this huge national presence and reach. And the goal, of course, always at NBNA is to continue to grow our membership. And I'm always very clear, Dr. Van, that everyone is welcome in NBNA. And I often get the question wherever I go, Dr. Fields, do I have to be Black to be a member of the National Black Nurses Association? My answer is always the same. No, you do not. But what you do need to be able to do is to understand, uh, buy into, and support our mission and vision for NBNA. If you can do that, you are most welcome in NBNA, irregardless of how you personally identify on any trait.
Absolutely. And I happen to know some members who are not
Mhm.
African descent or mixed African descent. So this is actually, Dr. Fields supports this position. And so let's talk about what are some of the priorities um, of the NBNA?
So, one, going way back to our founding in 1971 by a phenomenal, brave group of women whom I stand on their shoulders. I'm so incredibly thankful that they had the insight to start NBNA. Oh, there they go. Absolutely. And Dr. Betty Smith Williams, who you see right there in the front row, is the person who called for the vote to form the National Black Nurses Association. She is well into her 90s. She is still with us. We are so fortunate that she is. She comes to conference every year. I look forward to seeing her this year when we get to our conference in July out in San Francisco. But NBNA has a very long history of standing up programs to not only support those nurses who identify as Black or from the African diaspora, but also we organize nationally, we act locally. We through those chapters, we're able to implement programming that really makes a difference in all of the communities in which we find ourselves. And that's the important piece. That's the connection. That's what makes us so unique as an association. Because the programming that they might need and that they're doing in places where we have chapters in some of our southern states down in Florida and Texas, Alabama, is a little different than what the chapters are doing out in California, up in New York and New England. But everybody brings their authentic sense of their community and their needs. However, we also stand up some national programs and some focus. So I have brought with my presidency 4 particular initiatives that I thought was very important and that the membership has gotten on board and also thinks is rather important. One of which is in the background that you see here. All of us know that there is a Black maternal health crisis in our country, with brown and Black women dying at 3 times to 5 times the rate of white women in normal pregnancy. So I intentionally stood up the Black Maternal Health Task Force within NBNA. It's being led by Dr. Lucinda Canty and Dr. Camilla Barnes, which I'm eternally grateful that our colleagues came to take on that task. We have also stood up an oral health task force, which is being led by another one of my colleagues down from Florida, Dr. Audrey Miller. And we don't do enough about oral health. And the other thing that we did was we stood up a task force on military health. And Dr. Tiffany Amber is leading that goal for us. And, we need to do more for our nurses that are veterans, that are connected to the military, and because they have some very specific needs as well. And the last thing that we recently just did, and we're so excited about this, is with the advent of artificial intelligence, we realized that we needed to stand up an health equity task force that's focused on everything that's going on with artificial intelligence. And Dr. Sherry Wilson has taken on being chair of that task force. Now, this is in addition to all of the other things that we do around violence and mental health, what we're doing in fostering, trying to prime the pipeline to diversify the profession. And the immediate past president of NBNA, Dr. Martha Dawson, brought and she stood up the Mini Nurse Academy. It was her brainchild, and she really has been leading this charge. And it's about how do we educate children in primary school, 3rd, 4th graders, about what nursing is. Because if you think about it, by the time folks get into even junior high school, no one, if they're not been exposed, thinks about becoming a nurse, particularly those young brown and Black kids. You go into that 3rd and 4th grade class and you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? They're like, oh, I want to be a doctor or a fireman. No 3rd grader goes, I want to be a nurse. So we also do things like that. And this is a program that we're doing administered through the chapters that we're also continuing to do. So, and then, as I always say to people, if you have a great idea and you're passionate, bring that idea and your passion to NBNA. Let's figure out how to work together, because ultimately it is about how do we decrease the health inequities in our country, increase the number of Black nurses, support them, and really strive towards this issue of health equity.
Wow. So let's just take a deep breath and take all that in. And remember, Dr. Fields he's still in his first year of his 2-year term, but he has mobilized, and that's a gift he has. He mobilizes and inspires the members to do these innovative, creative, and necessary initiatives that we need. NBNA also in the local chapters offers scholarships for students, mentoring into the profession. So there's so many things. I'm a member of the Bay Area Black Nurses Association, and Dr. Cynthia Stacy is the president. And we're on a what do you call that? Social media, like WhatsApp, and there's always opportunities for volunteering in schools and health fairs in the community. So, and mentoring. We have a mentoring program. So,
that's actually one of the things that we're really proud of. Again, remember I mentioned we support Black nurses. 23% of the membership of NBNA are students, and they're our future. So we are very active in how do we intentionally find scholarship resources for these students to continue their education. And these are unlicensed professionals, which is how we define students in NBNA. Now, mind you, Once you get past your initial licensure, so if you're going back to grad school to get a master's or a DNP, a PhD, EDD, we also have scholarships for students at that level as well. And come to an NBNA conference and you'll see it. We give out well over $300,000 last year. We'll do the same at our upcoming conference in San Francisco, and we are always on the lookout for resources to support people, what I call leveling up, because everybody knows if you're going to be around Dr. Fields and you're not leveled up with your education, there's going to be a conversation about going back to school.
And it's a gentle conversation, but it's an impactful and nurturing conversation. So talk a little bit about coming to San Francisco. That's my home base. So talk about that.
July the 23rd through the 28th, we will be in San Francisco for our 52nd annual Institute and Conference. And we're very excited about coming to the West Coast. We have not been or held a conference in San Francisco in 20 years, so 2 decades. And the conference was originally scheduled to be held in Hollywood, Florida. And it was a conference that we had to postpone because it was originally scheduled for during the COVID year. And what happened was we could never have anticipated that by the time we got to 2024, the state of affairs in Florida would be such that we needed to consider moving our conference. With all of the anti-DEI, anti-Black history, and the NAACP's ban on travel for Black and African people to the state of Florida, we did a member survey. 87% of our members supported in us to move the conference out of the state of Florida, out of an overall preponderance of their safety, because people were afraid to come, and they told us they were not going to come, and they didn't want to support having a Black identified organization such as ours potentially be vulnerable to any type of mishap that might have occurred in Florida. So, owing to the will of the membership, the NBNA Board of Directors voted to relocate our conference from Florida to California to San Francisco. So we had to pivot. And I really want to thank the NBNA staff who have been working diligently to make sure that this conference goes off without a hitch. Our brand new executive director that we hired, Ms. Tanya Jackson, our former conference manager, Dr. Diane Nance, who helped us do a lot of that work as well. Kiana Shaw in our national office, our new financial analyst that literally just started with us, Mr. Jeffrey Hunter. They're just working so hard, and I'm thankful. But I promise you all, if you have not made plans, do so. July the 23rd through the 28th, we're going to be at the Marriott Marquis. The rooms are filling up quickly. So if you haven't made your reservations, you might get locked out of the main hotel. Don't worry, there's another one up the street, but you're gonna have to walk. But so make your plans. And we're so excited about what we're doing this year with our conference theme of really looking at how do we do improve health equity across the lifespan. And we're going to have a very intentional entrepreneurial focus on the conference this year as well. We have some really great announcements coming for Nurses Week about what we're going to do at conference. So yeah, we're super excited. Hope you all are planning to join us.
Well, it's been amazing to just, and I know there had to be a lot of hard work and pivoting in the background, but the way it was presented, Dr. Fields, smooth, positive, just an effective and inviting way. So, how many participants or do you expect at the conference? Or I should say, can you accommodate at the conference?
So here's what happens at our conference. We get quite a few nurses that come. We're talking hundreds. In Atlanta last year was one of our largest, but we also get people who come because a lot of people who come to the conference also bring their families. NBNA is a family-oriented association. So people bring their families, their spouses, their friends, and it comes to a huge sort of culmination, if you will. Usually the Saturday evening of our conference, you can see it at the Presidential Gala that happens that night. It's an award ceremony. This year, it's also going to be a fundraiser, a major fundraiser for NBNA. And to give you a sense, in the main ballroom last year in Atlanta, it was filled to the rafters. And anybody who was there remembers there was not any room on that dance floor. There were well over 2,000 people who were in attendance that evening. And that included the 800 to a little over 800 actually registered nurses that were there, but all of the supporters. So the numbers are always increasing, which is again why when we moved it, we had to find a place that could accommodate it. And I'm telling everybody right now, the ballroom at the Marriott Marquis in San Francisco is bigger than a ballroom at that Hilton in Atlanta. So we're going to have a bigger dance floor this year.
Well, all I can say is you talked about family. Yes. NBNA and local chapters are just like when we have a meeting, it's just like family meeting. And you talked about supporters. Here, I know here in the Bay Area, we have just tons of support, and I assume that's just across the nation. We didn't talk about the international chapters that you have. So can you just mention?
So, in the past, NBNA has had interest from several folks internationally in Africa, in the Caribbean, and we are working now to stand up a chapter from a lot of really great interested folks in London. It's still in the works. We have some things to sort of figure out about, exchange rates, as well as how do we make sure that we don't do anything that violates how we're currently structured as a 501c3 here. So we're consulting with a couple of our colleagues in some other international nursing organizations to figure out how they do their international chapters. Sigma being one of them, because Sigma Theta Tau is an international group. So we will have, hopefully, by the time we get to our next conference, we will be bringing in a couple of international chapters.
Yeah, this is phenomenal. There's no limit to the reach of NBNA. So let's talk about. I just some viewers may have just dropped in, and we are with the National Black Nurse Association president, Dr. Sheldon Fields, and he's talked about his background and then the myriad of initiatives that have been implemented by the Black Nurses Association across the country, and even garnering interest internationally. And so now, Dr. Fields, what I'd like to talk to you about is, and this show is all about healing. So my question is, what do you feel Black nurses need to heal from right now? We know we have a long history,
Yeah.
and the ANA president at the time, during his presidency, the ANA issued an apology. But just talk a little bit about that and what Black nurses
So,
heal from.
so again, I often get the question, Dr. um, Dr. Fields, why does there need to be a National Black Nurses Association when there's not a National White Nurses Association? And I tell you, I'm ready for the question. I always am. But I always do what you asked us to do at the beginning of this conversation. I take a deep breath before I answer it because I need to center myself.
Mhm.
And then the response usually goes something like this. Well, there's some history that you may not be aware of. And the question usually comes from somebody who's not a person of color, and that they're not aware that for a great majority of its early formation, the American Nursing Association excluded membership for anybody who wasn't white. They wouldn't let any nurse of color join.
Mhm.
So, they formed, those nurses of color formed the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses. They formed their own group. And this group advocated for many years to become a part of ANA. And they were told again, time and time, no. But around the early 1950s, there was an agreement struck with ANA that they would allow membership for these nurses, with the caveat that they sundown or close the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses. So they did. And would it surprise any of you, because it didn't surprise me, that true inclusive membership in ANA simply did not come? They still weren't allowed to have leadership positions or really have a true voice, even though they were members. Hence, the reason why those brave founders that we saw earlier got fed up enough and was like, we're going to form our own association. There you go. Hence, the birth of the National Black Nurses Association, out of the former, National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses. And it was time. And as I also often say to people, when we ever get to the point where true inclusion in nursing, uh, through something like the ANA actually happens, I still don't think we would ever sundown NBNA, because our association is very necessary, because we fight for people who look like us in places and spaces where we live, learn, die, and play. And currently, what we're all healing from, particularly anybody who's of African descent in this country, the racial animus in this nation is perverse. It is, you can put your pulse on it. All of the anti DEI, anti Black history, and then as nurses, we go into the settings in which we practice, and we don't get to choose our patients, and we treat everybody with the same level of compassion and humanity, as we should, but we bring all of that with us. And sometimes we encounter people who doubt our competence because we are people of color, don't believe that we are qualified, licensed healthcare professionals, and they reject our care. That's hurtful. Um, I often say, I fell in love with a profession that has not always loved me back. And as a Black Latino male in the profession, because at 80% white and 87% female, the nursing profession is not racially, ethnically, nor gender diverse. And it does not mirror the society in which we live. And nursing has a moral and ethical obligation to serve everyone in our society. So, I can't put away my blackness or my maleness when I go and I step into any role as a professional nurse. I bring all of that with me. And sometimes people see that as a threat, and they don't see me as the competent, highly accomplished nursing professional that I am. And I know that to be true for several of our colleagues as well.
Mhm. Well, Dr. Fields, you summed up hundreds of years of what us as brown, black folks have had to deal with, especially so eloquently you described it in the nursing profession. So there are organizations such as the National Black Nurses Association and the local chapters that support Black nurses to be able to be successful and feel proud to be nurses. So my question to you is, and I'll tell you first what I do. In order to counterbalance and mitigate these things that come at me, I meditate daily, and I use my breath and heart math and things like that. Share with us what you do, Dr. Fields.
So, like a lot of our colleagues, Dr. Van,
Mhm.
I will readily admit I am not as good
Mhm.
at taking care of and being mindful of my own wellness as I probably should.
Mhm.
And the older I get, the more aware I actually become. So I've now been starting to be very intentional about my morning walk.
Mhm.
Really just you got to take some time for yourself. Uh, I've become more mindful even about the amount of water I drink every day. I set a daily limit. I carry my water bottle. Even just those minor little things um, make a difference, you know. And every now and then, because I can work all day, every day, there's always something to do. But at some point, you got to shut off the computer and you got to walk away.
Mhm.
Everything will still be there when you come back. So it's also about setting some boundaries and, um, yeah, getting more mindful about what those are. Doing things that bring you joy outside of everything else that's going on around you, because you also can't control everything. And that's really hard for a type A Aquarian who's very driven and focused and passionate about the things that I believe that I have been put on this earth to do.
Mhm.
And you know the saying, Dr. Van, to whom much is given, much is expected.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Absolutely. So, Dr. Fields, I didn't know you were going to come on the show and preach, but now you just preached about self care and how important. And thank you for being so vulnerable and letting our viewers know that, you're not perfect. And I need to say, I don't meditate every day, but I'll tell you, I take quiet time every day.
yes.
Just I set my phone on 5 minutes, and just to settle your mind, it will do wonders for you. So
Oh, you
we're
know what? You know what other things I do?
yes.
Every day, like when I'm in the morning, when I'm getting ready or dressed, I put on my favorite music. I'm in there. I'm getting ready. I'm singing. You gotta find it somewhere. Uh, and I can actually carry a pretty good tune. So if I do say so.
Oh, okay. So are we gonna sing? Are you gonna sing us out?
No, but I can carry a tune. It's from all those years being raised in a
Uh-huh.
Baptist church growing up with my grandmother and being
Uh-huh.
forced to go to choir practice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's our foundation, though, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if church isn't a foundation, then something else might be your foundation. But we all need a foundation to keep us going. So, Dr. Fields, this has been absolutely enriching and inspiring, and I just thank you so much. But before you go, I have two questions for you, and one is, what advice would you give to um, a nurse, well, a person who's thinking about going into the profession? So it's a three-part. Thinking about going into the profession, is currently a student in nursing, and currently a practicing either clinical or leader. What advice would you give
Okay.
to them? Mhm.
So here's what I'll say to those who are aspiring to the profession: do your homework and do your due diligence. Because when I go and I talk to students quite often, and I'll go into a classroom and I'll ask a question about who wants to be a nurse and why do you want to be a nurse, and they have these what I call the Miss America answer. They'll go, oh, because I want to take care of people, and I want to and that's great. But then I ask them, how many of you really like science? And half the room doesn't raise their hand. And I inform them that nursing requires very intentional study in the sciences. And we're going to make you take a ton of science classes before we ever let you take a nursing course. So prepare yourself for that. For those who are currently nursing students, stay the course. I know it's hard. I know it's a challenge. Nursing school is and can be very difficult, very challenging, but it is also still very doable. And if you don't believe it, come join us in NBNA. Let us help you. You are not alone. We have resources for you. We have mentors. We have scholarships. And sometimes, and some of you are in places and spaces where when you look around, you don't see yourself because you are in majority spaces where there are not people of color. So come, because when you walk into an NBNA conference and you see a ballroom full of people who reflect who you are, you even feel and you truly then believe that you are not alone. And we need you. So stay the course. For my colleagues that are in their careers, that are trying to find their way into other areas, that are progressing, I say something very similar. Let us help you. Everybody needs a mentor at whatever point you are in your career for whatever it is you're aspiring to do. I still have mentors. I have some fabulous people who continue to support me. And one of them, and I'll call him out, and he's going to get mad at me, but I'll call him out. I rely so much on the wisdom and the guidance of Dr. Randolph Rash. And if you don't know who Dr. Rash is, he was the first African American man to ever receive a PhD in nursing in his country. He is an absolute brilliant man. He is a friend. He is a colleague. He is a confidant, and he is my mentor. And I'm so grateful for his presence in my life. So find your mentors, continue to strive for whatever it is you really want to do. There are so many great things that we can do in this profession. And sometimes people will intentionally put obstacles in your way. Find your way around them and be resilient. And join us in NBNA.
Absolutely wonderful. There's so much more. We've just started to peel away the layers, and this has been phenomenal, informative, Dr. Fields. And you have a little more than a year left. What is it on your heart, and not on the paper, but on your heart? What do you want to accomplish before the end of your term?
I, when I think about it, I will work to do everything that I can to leave NBNA a little better than how I found it as president. I consider myself to be a transformative servant leader. And we're really focused on not only reserving and respecting NBNA's past over its last 53 years, but also ensuring that NBNA is going to be here for the next 50 years. And when things get a little challenging, as they do, I remind myself of that. And also about the absolute honor it is to have been given the responsibility by my colleagues to provide leadership at this time. I do have one more year in my current term, but however, I really do hope that next year when I run for reelection, that my colleagues will continue to give me the opportunity. If they do, I will gladly continue my servant leadership.
Wow. Dr. Fields, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And as we close, I just want to say that we support you. We are in awe and admiration of all you've done just in this year. And it's just going to get better. It's just started. You've just begun. And what an impact that you have had. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for you being a transformative leader and servant.
Yeah. It's my absolute pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity. This has been absolutely wonderful. I've enjoyed this conversation. As I told you earlier, I was so looking forward to it.
Well, you know, this is one of the shows where I wish I had an after show so that we could continue the conversation. But that's given me an idea for.
What's an idea? The after show. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so after the show. But you have a great day, Dr. Fields. And if I don't see you before, I will definitely be at the conference in July. And also, we're going to drop into the chat after this episode contact information for Dr. Fields and information about the upcoming conference. Yes. So that you can be there. And San Francisco, it will just embrace you. The Black nurses will embrace you. You will be embraced. Thank you so much, Dr. Fields.
Absolutely. Bye for now.
Okay. All right. I just want to take a breath and just kind of embrace everything and take in everything Dr. Fields has said. I know I am inspired by his words, by his passion, by his energy, by his commitment. And what I wanted to read, and it's just perfect. I put my finger into my book, Regala Healing, before starting, and I just think that my energy knew that this would be the right words to end with. And so this is my poem, I Believe Too, and it's on page 121 in my book, Regala Healing, and you'll get the information about how to access it. But it's titled, I Believe Too. I believe the time is now. I believe I know how. I believe my spirit is on fire. I believe I'm inspired. I believe my purpose revealed. I believe I am healed. And so I hope that there has been something during this time that has inspired you and that has healed you and that will propel you to do all the things that your heart desires and all the things that you have been equipped in life to do. Because remember, you are beautifully made in His sight. And so please join me here the first and third Sundays right here. And until I see you again, I wish you love and light. Thank you.